editors panel. I'm going to start again because the recording just started, right? So hello, everybody, and welcome to our Meet the Editors panel, Language and Intercultural Communication. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Malcolm McDonald, who will be running this session together with his team, Hans Ladegaard, Vivian Zhu, Beatriz Peña-Dix, and John Corbett. So please let's welcome this wonderful team. Hello, everybody. So I give you the floor.
Okay.
Welcome, I think it's you.
Good morning, Bogotá, and good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. So welcome to this session that we've been running for 6 or 7 or 8 years now, whereby we actually make an attempt so that members of IALIC can actually see some of the contributors to the journal Language and Intercultural Communication, which I have the privilege to edit along now with Hans Ladegaard. We've got a team of millions here to present to you. Unfortunately, Hans has had to call it a night in Hong Kong and has quite recently gone to bed. Vivian is teaching, but I'm here, Beatriz is here, Manuela is here as a special guest, and John is also here, in fact, staying up late in Zhuhai, China. Okay, so I want to start by just introducing you to the journal. I'm editor-in-chief along with Hans Ladegaard, who's just joined me in this. The reviews and criticism editor is Vivian Zhu, who works at Edinburgh Napier, and we have a small but tightly knit editorial board that work together quite closely, including Manuela, who will talk to you in a little bit. This is Hans, who is with you in spirit, if not in mind. Okay, so this presentation will start with me just saying 1 or 2 things about LAIC, the journal. Then Manuela will take you through some of the procedures related to special issues, and in particular focus on a special issue which she and John edited for the journal in the past year. Vivian is reviews and criticism editor, as I said. We'll have a section about writing and submitting book reviews. Unfortunately, Vivian is teaching, so I'll cover that bit of the presentation. And then we save the best bit for you till last, the moment you've all been waiting for, when Beatriz will brief you about the special issue that will come out of this conference to be published in 2023. And we hope quite a lot of you will be thinking about submitting papers to that. Okay, so for those who are new to IALIC and maybe aren't that familiar with the journal, let me just cover some of the basic facts and figures about the journal. Okay, we've been running now for just over 20 years. LAIC was launched along with the association in 2000. And I guess we're moving from becoming a young and relatively new journal to becoming a sort of mid-career journal. And indeed, we're just in the process still of editing our 20th anniversary special issue. We're listed in all the main, we're published by Taylor and Francis, and we've moved from having 4 issues a year to now being published 6 times a year by Taylor and Francis. Going to 6 issues was quite a milestone for us, and we only started that in 2017, and was a measure, I think, both of the number of papers we had coming through from authors, but also of the number of special issue proposals that we had in particular. And I just want to say at this stage that this journal is, certainly I and my colleagues, I think, who are on the floor today, sharing the floor with me, are of the view that this journal is a collective endeavor. It really is driven and owned by the association. It certainly should remain really in a close relationship with the association for many years to come. Therefore, the contribution of attendees at the conference, not just to the special issue, but also to the open issues that feature papers by individual authors, is critical to the success of the journal. Also, a lot of the ideas that we see generated in conferences like this get built upon and developed into research projects or theoretical papers and published in the journal. So the relationship between the association, the annual conferences, and the journal is completely integrated, organic, and dynamic, in my view. The figure that people are still pretty interested in is the impact factor, which is a measure of the number of times each article can expect to be cited, has gone up almost 2 now in 2020. This is exceptionally high, and it varies a lot from year to year. But 1.203 is not a bad impact factor for a journal of our age. And we're just moving into volume 2 now as we come up to 2022. Okay, so if you go to the journal website, you'll see what the journal is all about, the aims and scope of the journal. And I do just like to run through this with colleagues at the conference, just to be aware really of the focus of the journal. And again, it's pretty much in synergy with what we're hoping to achieve in our annual conferences in IALIC. Hans has actually just taken over from me, editing the open issues, and he's finding that a lot of the papers that we get submitted to the journal, he regretfully is just rejecting without review. And the main reason that papers do get rejected without review is that the authors don't seem to be aware of what the journal is really all about. So these are the core, if you like, objectives of the journal. I'll just walk you through these so you don't have to read them on the website. Okay. So the aim of LAIC is to be receptive to research on the frontiers between languages and culture. So when LAIC was conceived in 2000, still, if you like, the synergy between language and culture was relatively new. It's kind of much more taken for granted, I think, 20 years on, but this is still core to our work. But there is also, if you like, a critical and political agenda to the journal, which seeks to resist reductive and hegemonic interpretations and is stimulated by contemporary critical perspectives and understanding cultural practices and intercultural relationship. So we're still actually in a kind of a struggle to correct our own content between the impact of hegemonic cultures and languages and those of lesser known cultures or language. And we're always open to different ways of thinking about the world that maybe might change some of the more hegemonic views of the world that are represented in mainstream cultures. Thereby, it promotes an understanding of the position and politics of languages in intercultural communication. Crucially, language in intercultural communication is an interdisciplinary journal. I myself have gone through different disciplines of literature, education, and applied linguistics, modern languages, anthropology, and philosophy are also represented in the journal, sometimes in different combinations or separately. This interdisciplinarity, I think, is a key characteristic of the journal, and I think also promotes some of the new understandings and interpretations that we're able to develop in the papers. Our research is principally, however, linguistic, not reductively linguistic, but it builds mainly on linguistic interaction between peoples from different parts of the world. We also feature a lot of the implications of those interactions for education, not least higher education, but we have other areas of education that feature. For example, I was very proud to be able to publish a paper which focused on deaf education in the last year, looking at more specialist areas of education. So specialist educational cultures, so to speak, are also ripe for investigation within the context of LAIC. And then finally, the journal should aim to make an effective contribution to disseminating new ideas and examples of good practice in educating students in language and intercultural communication. So at core, we're linguists and educationists. We're looking to push the frontiers. Okay, so for those of you who are maybe thinking of placing a paper in LAIC, what sort of stuff do we publish? Okay, so first of all, just to get a sense of the journal dynamic, Hans and I have now split the two roles of the journal. I've been editing the open issues for 10 years now, having taken over actually from John 10 years ago. And I've been editing open issues for 10 years, so I thought it was time to take a rest. And Hans has graciously taken over that task. The open issues are where we review and edit ad hoc papers that people submit, academics submit. I have gone to be executive editor for special issues, and I will be overseeing the conference issue, which comes out of this conference, for example, as well as other invited special issues, such as the one that Manuela and John published in 2021, and Manuela will be telling you a bit about in a minute. The current open issue.
Malcolm, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Beatrice thinks you might have a PowerPoint that you haven't shared. Is that true?
Yes. If you're not seeing a PowerPoint, I haven't shared it.
We don't see a PowerPoint. So I just wanted to check that with you before you.
No, I should get this up. Yeah.
Share screen.
Yeah. I just need to get back.
Sorry to interrupt, but that is my role in your life.
No. You've done the right thing.
I don't know if you're having difficulty doing it. I don't know if Beatrice can show the PowerPoint slide or share the PowerPoint slide.
No, I think it's got to come from me.
Okay. I think if you're a co-host, you can, but.
Right, here we go.
I will. Yep, that's it. It's working.
Okay. Can you see that okay, folks?
It says you've started screen sharing, but the PowerPoint slide isn't up yet. It might be that you're broadcasting from the third world. I'm not sure. Of your attic. We can edit this part out of the.
Can you see?
Wow, there you go. Yes, we can see. We can see it now.
Can you see this one? Yeah.
We can even see it in China. Well done.
Okay, I apologize for that, folks. Right, this is as far as I got. Huge sigh of relief. I was just saying who does what in the journal, and I will now just mention one or two papers that we've published in the journal.
Sorry, Malcolm. We only have we can see the last PowerPoint slide, but I'm not sure which one you're on.
We're on the one that refers to the current open issue.
What we can see, well, what I can see is any questions. So perhaps you need to look at view options. I'm not sure.
Have we got any luck at the moment?
Yes, we can now see current open issue. That's what we can see.
Okay, fab.
That's great. Thanks. We are cooking on gas.
Are we still in there?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, apologies for that. I got stuck in my previous presentation. I thought I had this all covered. Okay, so just to bring you to the current open issue of the journal, volume 21, issue 5, and I've just highlighted here one or two papers that might be relevant, particularly relevant to the current conference. We've got a paper looking at the negotiation of group identity in NGO working in Mexico. We've got a research into a group of Latin American workers working in London by Francisco Morales. There is also a decolonial investigation of the way in which interculturality is manifested in universities in Mexico. We have got an investigation into language attitudes towards English in Catalonia. So quite a few papers coming from the Spanish-speaking world here in issue 5, which is great. Then just to show you what we've got coming up in the next volume, after this open issue, we've got a special issue going to press, edited by Melodine Sommier, Alex Frame, and David Bouquet, which looks at critical approaches to cultural identities. Then we've got a special issue which looks at the relationship between intercultural communication and creative practice, edited by Lou Harvey and colleagues. The long-awaited special issue coming from the 20th anniversary conference will hit your pigeonholes in June 2022, followed by an open issue. And then Jan van Meijer and Lixian Jin will edit a special issue coming out of a conference looking at the way in which resources have been developed for intercultural communication in Chinese higher education. That's a collaborative European and Chinese initiative. So those sort of things that we have coming up. And I'm glad I've got the slideshow up here, because now we get to our next editors, who I'm sure can do a better job of me. Manuela Guilhem and John Corbett will now talk a bit about the procedures for submitting special issues, and also say a bit about their own special issue that they edited. Okay, take it away, Manuela and or John.
Okay, John, will you start, please?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, Manuela. Thank you, Malcolm. I'm now going to have to try to remember how this started. I think the idea of a special issue started, and Manuela will correct me, with a conversation that we had around about the time of the 20th anniversary of IALIC, and we were thinking of themes and topics, and one of us, and I can't remember which one of us, observed that it was the centenary of Paulo Freire. So we thought that it would be nice to commemorate the centenary of Paulo Freire by looking at critical pedagogy and quality education. Now, this was very much Manuela's idea, to take a look at the UNESCO Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is the Sustainable Development Goal of quality education, and take a look at the legacy of Paulo Freire for language and intercultural communication globally, although we don't like using the word globally. Look at it worldwide in the context of quality education. And the special issue was very much put together by a combination of inviting people that we thought might be interested, by putting out a call for abstracts in the first place, and then following up the abstracts with an invitation for those abstracts that we accepted for full papers. The papers are then peer-reviewed, blind peer-reviewed in the normal way. Some at that point sadly fall by the wayside. And these are the papers that got through the process. So yeah, the idea was that once we had the plan for the special paper together, the special issue together, which was the abstracts, we submitted a one-page proposal. I think it was slightly longer than a page, for initial review to Malcolm. It's reviewed by 2 members of the editorial board. And once it is okayed by the editorial board, we can go back to our abstract writers and say we've got the go-ahead for a full issue. But then the papers still have to be peer-reviewed after they have arrived. Yeah, it takes about 18 to 24 months to do it, and that's tight. And I don't know if you want to add anything about the contents, Manuela.
Thank you, John. It was a great pleasure to work on this special issue. It was really very special. As Malcolm said, the journal, John and Malcolm have been working worked very closely with the association throughout the years, so that made the journal very substantial in ideas and having definite purposes. With regard to the special issue, John kindly invited me for this celebratory issue. And then the idea was to work on the message by Paulo Freire, as it, in the way it has been put into practice in different places in the world, the different experiences, but having also this idea of quality of education that the United Nations put forward as one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And generally, as John pointed out, there is this idea of globality, of globalization, as and quality. The idea of quality is generally put in that way. So we tried to have authors not only provided different experiences in different parts of the world, but they had solid ideas and based on critical pedagogy, as theorized by Paulo Freire. So I believe that this was a successful combination, and it was a pleasure. I was very fortunate because I was working with someone very experienced, very well, but very knowledgeable about the journal. And also, once you make a proposal for a special issue, then we have great support by the chief editor, Malcolm, as well as by the editorial board. So every proposal is discussed, and the idea and the intention is very constructive to discuss with the authors of the proposal how it can be implemented within the spirit of the journal.
But can I just say something else, just to follow up on what Manuela is saying? Obviously, it was a great privilege to work with you, Manuela, and I learned so much from the experience of working on this journal. But one of the pleasures of working in this special issue, but also working in the journal in the past for me, and I'm sure it's the same for Malcolm, is the possibility of actually finding a contribution from somewhere that is not necessarily represented in the mainstream educational discourse. So if you're getting something from Africa, for example, which is not represented very much in the mainstream educational discourse, when I started getting something from China was actually quite unusual, less so now, but and also Latin America, perhaps not represented as much as it should be. Learning about interculturalidad is a great pleasure for me through working on this special issue. So we very much welcome contributions from people who might see themselves as being marginalized. And this is an opportunity to make an active and positive intervention. So the editors very positively welcome contributions from the periphery, from the marginalized, from a decolonial perspective.
May I briefly say something about the articles?
Yeah.
May I, if you move, so in this special issue, it starts with one interview and an article by two authors who met and worked and collaborated with Paulo Freire in life, in the last years of his life. And then the third article is from a very special, about the experience of a very special university, which is very recent and tries to meet a population in need in Brazil, but in the what they call the three-border region, with Paraguay and with Argentina and Brazil, a region where there are many communities, indigenous communities, students from indigenous communities, and it's really a multilingual university. And then one from Mexico, from another intercultural university in Mexico, Veracruz Intercultural University, and they work very closely with education programs, intercultural education. They are specialists, all of them specialists in intercultural education. And then one from South Africa, I found also very original. We did. And there was a big contribution by John Corbett to improve. So his experience and his knowledge and expertise were very important for improving the quality of each of these papers. And finally, from a colleague in Tel Aviv who works with Palestinian students. So it's varied and very deeply ingrained in the regional, in the local problems.
Okay, thanks very, very much for that overview of the special issue. And I just want to say that, so, you know, this is a great set of papers and it's well worth the read. And can I just say that 3 of these papers are actually available through open access. One, I believe, is in the reading room, which you can get through the conference website. So Manuela's introduction is an open access paper. So is Catherine Walsh's essay about Freire. And then the publishers have given us special access for 3 months to the paper by Leonardo Montoya Palais and colleagues. That also is open access, and you can, I believe, access that through the reading room. So anyway, download those anyway for your files, and who knows, one day you might want to read them. And of course, Manuela's overview will give you a more in-depth sense of the framing of the special issue. Okay, so thanks very much for that. And the main thing we want to get across to participants, really, thanks for sticking with us, is that this is your journal and we want contributions from you. And then obviously, individual papers are very welcome in the journal. But you might not be so aware of the fact that we would also welcome proposals for special issues around a specialist theme that you're familiar with that you can develop with your colleagues. By all means, just contact me directly by email, informally. I'm very relaxed about these things. But to make the process of proposing a special issue quite simple, we do just ask for a 1-page initial proposal. I can also send you the procedures for drawing up a proposal for a special issue if you email me. So probably best just to email in the first place if you've got any ideas for a special issue. Okay, moving on then. Thanks very much, Manuela and John. You've given us lots to think about around that, both for your special issue and for special issues more generally. Unfortunately, Vivian is back on the day job at the moment, teaching over in Edinburgh. Another way, particularly, I think, for younger researchers, maybe those of you are completing your PhDs, of dipping your toe in the water, so to speak, of international publication, is to write a book review. And Vivian Zhao is the book reviews editor for IALIC. Here she is. And you might have attended a presentation yesterday. Okay, so what to say about book reviews? So we publish, or at least try to publish, our aim is to publish 2 book reviews for each issue of the journal. That's 12 book reviews a year. And clearly the books that are reviewed should be relevant to the aims and scope of the journal. They should be relatively recent, certainly within the past 2 years. And for 2022, yeah, we're looking at books that are really being published in 2021, maybe coming out in 2022. We're aiming for about 1,000 words in book reviews. To be honest, I personally am not so fussed. If you go over a few hundred words, it doesn't really matter. Now, the important thing about writing a book review, particularly for IALIC, is that it should be critical. Critical comes up everywhere, right? It should present a well-constructed critical argument that not only describes the content of the book. Yeah, you want to give readers an idea of what's in the book. can be informed by relevant literature outside the book, but also is a critical assessment and intellectual engagement with the book. The review should also be coherent and, sorry folks, written in English and follow the referencing style of the journal. So if you fancy writing a book review, get in touch with Vivian, not me actually, in the first place, maybe to discuss a book of interest or to just put your name forward as a potential book reviewer. And then Vivian will get back to you, propose a book that you review. And I'm not being quite clear here. Vivian normally selects the books and then asks someone to review them. But by all means, I think, you know, if you're really engaged in a powerful critical text for your literature review, for your PhD, why not get it published? You just drop Vivian a mail and she'll let you know whether we can move ahead with it. So the publisher will send a copy of the book, could be an electronic copy. I apologize for that. I much prefer hard copies myself, and I think it's the least publishers can do. But they tend to just send out electronic copies nowadays, and you'll have about 3 months to write a review. And you will send your review directly to Vivian by email, not through the journal portal. And this is reviewed in the normal process by Vivian as editor, although it does not go out to external reviewers. And once the review is finally approved, it's sent through to the production. Okay, this is just a hint of, well, it's more than a hint. This is a list of all the reviews we've published this year in LAIC to give you a sense of the scope of things. We've got a couple of 2019s coming up here, but they're almost all 2020 publications. Got quite a few of our favorites here: Sarah Ganassin, Adrian Holiday, Jane Jackson, who published their Routledge Handbook with edited chapters by quite a few people who are hanging around in this chat room, and book by Fred Dervin, who is everywhere nowadays, also got reviewed in 2021 LAIC. So yeah, that sort of thing we publish. So interested in reviewing a book, get in touch with Vivian. There's her email address, and it's also on the journal website. And we're hugely grateful to all our reviewers who got a mention in that list for the 2020 volume. Okay, here's the moment you've all been waiting for, folks. This is your special issue, the special issue that's going to come out of this conference, that you are very welcome to submit a paper to, developed out of your presentation conference. So Beatrice, Benedicts, and possibly John, who one can never quite stop from talking, might chip in to tell you about this special issue and the procedures. Okay, over to you guys. Yeah.
Thank you a lot, Malcolm. Yes,
I tried.
Right. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be participating in the special issue. For us, it is very, very significant, very meaningful that we're issuing the conference from Latin America, from Bogotá. So this live issue is also so important for us. We hope we're setting a trend with Spanish and maybe other languages involved. So thank you, Malcolm, and thank you, team. Okay, so to talk about the special issue, it's a very regular procedure, the rigorous procedure, and it's worth remembering every step. So John, please help me if I am missing something. We're going to have a first step of call for papers, for sure, or invitations. We are going to be getting together, the scientific committee that is going to be chaired by John and myself. We're going to be discussing and examining proposals very closely to select the different abstracts that will conform later papers, okay, papers later. people are going to have around 4 months to transform abstracts into papers, right, Malcolm?
Yeah.
It is not much time, but I think that with the motivation we all have here, I am sure that we're having things done on time.
Yeah, but I think the idea is, we can do this dialogically. The idea is, I mean, obviously, all presenters have already developed their paper to a certain degree. Of course, we all know what it's like. We'll be hammering into the conference, you know, getting our last slides up together and all this sort of thing. But we'll have a fairly substantial paper worked out in our heads. But it's unlikely that many speakers at this conference will have a time really to sit down and develop their papers formally and shape them into something that looks like publishable research paper. You know,
but is this a full version,
given,
right? These are full drafts.
A full draft.
In this moment.
Full draft, yeah.
Okay, so yes, we're expecting full drafts in this moment. Of course, we are having anonymous blind review for papers, so that we're going to have later to suggest later amendments from this first draft, and publication date would be on February 2023, right? So
yeah, that's when it's
a whole year working on that. Yes, 1 year working on that. Thank you, Malcolm. So the criteria is, as Malcolm was saying before, an original contribution to field of language and intercultural communication. So I think that maybe we can advise here to check on previous issues, because you have a very good idea of, you know, what is being collected there, like the spirit of LIALIC journal, like having this critical approach to the different topics included in the special issues. For sure, it has to be aligned with conference theme this year, that is language, culture, and interculturality, global debates, local challenges. We are going to follow rigorous of research, as always, LIALIC's been doing, coherence of paper, and a critical approach. As Malcolm mentioned before, it is more than describe something, that describe the problem. We have to go critical for it, and hopefully making successful relationships with LIALIC topics, right? LIALIC topics and previous themes. I remember that from the previous call. Yes, for sure, well written in English or Spanish with an abstract in another language, meaning that, of course, they have to present a bilingual abstract, right? Bilingual abstracts, just in case.
Yeah, so one abstract in English or Spanish and one abstract in another language.
And you know, this is the first time LIALIC is doing that. So I really want to highlight that, and thank you, Malcolm and team, because I think it was a great opportunity just to include all these languages involved, particularly in this year's issue. So thank you, in next year's issue. Yeah. So thank you.
So the publishers actually saw this as an opportunity. You know, they were very welcome to this. So yeah.
Okay, John, would you like to jump in?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure when the deadline for abstracts is. Do we have a deadline for abstracts?
Sorry, can I just maybe come in here? Now, I mean, just to clarify the procedure. Okay, so the papers which submitted for the conference special issue normally, and I mean, this is all open to subsequent negotiation with you and Beatrice, but you've got you already have, if you like, selected possible abstracts from the abstracts that were submitted to the conference. So basically, we're now issuing an open invitation, if it's okay with you two, to all delegates who have presented at this conference to write up their abstracts, their presentations as papers, and submit them to the journal.
Okay, that's clear to me. It's slightly different. It's slightly different.
Perfect. From a special issue. Great idea.
Yeah,
that's different from a special issue. So
yeah,
yes, the answer to Wenwen's question then is write up your paper and submit it by the 14th of March, 2022.
That's correct.
You have that deadline now. So this is slightly different from a special issue. So anyone who has submitted to the conference is welcome to write up, take until 14th of March, polish their presentation into a full paper and submit it. Now they'll submit it online through Manuscript Central. And when they're uploading it to the Manuscript Central website, it will say, is it a special issue? And you say special issue IALIC 2021. You'll be asked to indicate. This means that you will not be considered for an open issue. You'll be considered for the special issue. Now, there is an advantage of doing that because by and large, there is a more limited pool of papers, unless things have changed since my day, there's a more limited pool of papers goes into a special issue. So you have a greater chance of being accepted if you submit to a special issue. So it is worth your while submitting to the special issue, IALIC 2021. We will endeavour to get reviews back by May 2022. This is dependent on reviewers being good and disciplined and punctual. They are not always that, but we will try to get the reviews back by May 2022. It doesn't give them much time. We will then give you until July to do the revisions, if revisions are asked for. And then the manuscripts are due for production by November 2022. So they would have to be submitted in July for production in November. Manuscripts are published online before they're in the actual hard copy. So you will get a preprint copy in December 2022 if all goes well. And if you're fortunate and lucky, you'll be toasting yourself with champagne on 23rd, well, sorry, in February 2023. So that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
I think that somebody was asking for the extension. Yes.
Yeah, somebody asked how many papers we expect to publish. I can't remember, Malcolm. Can you remember roughly how many papers we expect to publish?
Yeah, this is a how long is a bit of string question. I mean, I have never really found out the upper limit of what will go between covers in a hard copy, but theoretically it could be up to 15 as an absolute maximum. We do have capacity within most volumes to publish that sort of number in any single special issue. But
to be honest, we don't usually get more than we can publish. And if we do, I mean, if we have a bunch of remarkably good papers that cannot be squeezed into a special issue, usually the editors and Malcolm do some kind of deal. So something might appear in a later open issue, or there might be a spillover, if we think that it is appropriate and if the author is okay with that. So if we get over, I think in the past there has been a little bit of overspill, but it's not very common. Often we find that the amount of papers that are acceptable will fit into a single special issue. I don't know if Malcolm wishes to contradict me in that one.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I mean, to put it brutally, we won't get 15 good papers. You know, so we're looking. We normally get out about.
If by a miracle we get 25 very good papers, we will try to find a way to honor them.
Yeah, this is true.
I think that'd be a miracle.
Yeah. I see the implication of the question. Yes. So we will publish. This is an undertaking. We will publish all publishable papers. But as John says, normally, well, to date, so far, we've been able to fit them all in the special issue, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's good news or bad news.
Any other questions? Anything else you want to say? Ooh. Anything else you want to say? I take it everybody knows how to. Manuscript Central can be
how to go to the reading room. Perfect. Right. So just let's wait for a couple of questions here in the panel, and then I will inform you about the reading room. I don't know if we have some more questions. So I think that it's important to say that please send us your proposals, your chapters, your articles. We are sure that we are going to have a very nice time reading and selecting and giving feedback. Right, John?
You haven't done this before, Beatrice.
That's why I am so enthusiastic.
It is a learning experience. And
I know, and I am so glad to be part of it. So do we have anything to add, or do we have any other questions from the audience?
Can I just make one plea? If anybody's using illustrations, if anybody's using photographs, do make sure you have copyright clearance. If you've got photographs, maps, whatever, please do make sure that you have license to use these. We can't. I know when I was working in Brazil that there is a kind of fairly lenient copyright regime there, but it doesn't work with Taylor and Francis. You do have to get copyright permission for any image that you're using. I once had to find a license holder for a graphic novel cover from a company that went out of business in 1952. No, Eamon, there isn't a conference proceeding. This basically works as the conference proceedings. So we have the selected papers in Lake. You are welcome if you don't wish to submit to Lake to submit elsewhere, but this effectively acts as a version of the conference proceedings.
So does anyone have any final questions? We normally have quite a good chat when we're in the room, but I think we're pretty much there, if that's clear. I can't believe it has been, but we tried. So yeah, so I mean, I just to summarize then this last bit that I think you've got now. So by all means, just go full steam ahead. If you want to publish your paper from this conference, you can go from tomorrow, start developing it into a 8,000 word paper. Can I make a plea? Please read the instructions to authors, which is on the journal website, just so you know what you're heading at, hitting for. I think one thing that maybe we haven't got across, because we've talked about research quite generically, is that we are open to many forms of genre of paper. So we're open to theoretical papers or empirical studies, and this might be empirical studies of many different sorts. Could be a straightforward kind of quantitative study that might be being reported in the session. But I must say, more often than not, we do tend to publish qualitative studies in LAIC. And I think most of the empirical studies that I've seen so far in this conference have been qualitative. And again, you know, we encourage, well, how shall I put it? You know, if you're starting out in your research career, it's probably best to say, stay safe and publish a paper along fairly predictable lines. If you're more secure in your writing, we certainly encourage experimentation. Different people have different ways of kind of framing qualitative studies with respect to the way in which they relate the theoretical element to the empirical element. Some people put the front, then go to discussion. Some people weave the theoretical element around the data as a form of commentary. And the more radical qualitative researchers start with the data and work inductively to the theory. So we're open to all modalities really of written paper. Pictures always make for a good read. as John has said, by all means include figures, diagrams, photographs. These do help the journal go around. Another thing I can say is that the publishers actually are very keen to engage with readers through many different modalities. And there is space on the journal website for what they call additional materials to the journal. A good example of that would be a paper that Siobhan Brownlee wrote talking about a project she carried out in Manchester with Congolese women, migrants, where they wrote a book of creative writing. Siobhan wrote a interpretive, critical paper around that. And I was absolutely delighted, essentially, to be able to publish the book of creative writing that came out of their project on the Taylor and Francis website as additional material. It was available for download. It still is, actually, if you're interested in that project. So, as I say, we're open to many different framings of research, so long as it's done, as I say, to a high standard with within its own criteria and criteria for coherence and rigor. Yeah. So I'd say steam ahead, prepare your papers for publication, get them in by the 14th of March. You can always submit early. Nobody ever does. Submit it through the journal portal, and then Beatrice, with her normal efficiency, will circulate a reminder, as is customary, I guess, in the new year, if you don't mind, maybe with a link to the journal portal that we can sort out, just to make sure everything's underway.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Beatrice and John, Manuela, and any more to say? Yeah, it's not often we finish early. In fact, it's hard to stop. But thanks for your attention, folks. Thanks for your obvious interest in submitting to the journal. I apologize for the misfire with the PowerPoint earlier on. And yeah, I'll see you in the next session.
Sure. Thank you very much. I am just going to share my screen for a second, because I want to show you the reading room before we leave today. For some of you who have been asking, can you see the web page? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So this is the web page. Okay, in the web page that I just copy pasted the link in the chat, you're going to find everything, all the information you need, including the program here and the book of abstracts here. If you scroll down, you find the reading room. You have Multilingual Matters special offer, 40 off of all books. And here you have the list. Malcolm, thank you for this great selection of articles here from Language and Intercultural Communication. And you can read them and download them, okay, during up to the 15th of December, I think. Yes. I don't remember if it's that or if it is for 3 months now, but I think you have enough time. 2 months. Okay, thank you, John. It seems it's 2 months. 3 months. Okay, 3 months. So you have time enough to check them, download, maybe to share with your students. Okay, valuable information and a great selection of articles to read from Language and Intercultural Communication. So I think that, Malcolm, I don't know what you think, but I think that this is also a very good example of the type of articles we're looking for, the structure, the whole layout issue as well. So it could always serve as a guideline too. So this is the yes.
Yeah, and I've selected a bunch of papers that I hope are kind of relevant to most of you who are attending this conference. And I think at this point, we should also acknowledge the generosity of, if you like, our two in-house publishers. And I think we can give you a bit of background to that. So the journal actually started out being published by Multilingual Matters, and they have maintained close ties with the association and are, if you like, one of the go-to book publishers for members of this association. In fact, John has a very noble book coming out with them just this year, the reissue of his classic book, English Language and Intercultural Communication, English Language Teaching and Intercultural Communication. And then when I took over from John, the journal transferred to Taylor and Francis, a bigger multinational and potentially scary corporation to work with. But I have to say that they have been most supportive of the journal. Multilingual Matters had taken it as far as they could within their family environment in 2010. But Taylor and Francis have also been wonderful and are also very accessible for those of you who are thinking about publishing books in this particular field. And when I say books, I mean also PhDs. Publishers are looking for things to publish, you know, and there's no need, if you like, to feel, how shall we say, humble when approaching a publisher, because they want your copy that you may have spent 4 or 5 years working on and is your life's work. So certainly they have been generous in giving us this discount and making these papers further available to us at the conference. But at the same time, it's business, and you know they want our business. And I've certainly found them terrific to work with over these 10 years, both publishers. So I certainly recommend them to anyone who wants to get a proposal in there.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, Manuela, and John. So I think that we're done right now and we can go to the coffee break. Well, coffee break, Colombian time.
I wish I was drinking your coffee.
All right, see you later. Bye.